didn't see you come in. I was just getting ready to explore the night sky because today's video is all about comets. I got this book by the Computer Club, published by Macdonald, so they're all about comets, and then I found the programs within are all for the BBC Micro, which I have no particular experience with, although I did use one at school, at primary school in the 80s, also at secondary school to play Daredevil, Dennis and Chucky Egg. So, I'm not bored with BBC Micro, but I have downloaded a very good emulator called BeebEm, which we should be using to look at the 4 programs in this computer. So, this book was published in 1985 to take part in the worldwide excitement caused by the arrival of Halley's Comet, or Halley's Comet, I think it's Halley's, but I may have pronounced it wrong throughout the video, in 1986. So, if you look at the first program in the book. The first program we're going to look at is ComSpot. The book talks about comet spotting and how each new comet is named after the person who discovers it. There are various number of famous comet spotters. And it talks about the first comet discovered in the 20th century in Britain was by George Alcock, who memorised the position of all the stars that can be seen through binoculars. Each night he checks the stars to see where they should be. If there's a star that isn't in the right place, it probably isn't a star, but a comet. His memory has helped him find 4 comets. So what we're doing here is we're going to look at 3 constellations to start off with: Orion, Bootes and Ursa Major. So this is what Orion looks like, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 stars in Orion, in that sort of shape, the classic Orion's belt. We're then going to look at Bootes. I don't know if it's pronounced that way, but I'm pronouncing it Bootes. It looks a bit like a sword, perhaps, with a line at the bottom, like a scimitar, perhaps. And then finally, you're going to look at Ursa Major, which of course we know as the Great Bear, the Big Dipper, or the Plough. Very quickly there. So now, there's going to be a comet somewhere in the sky. We need to look through the available constellations and try to spot the odd star out, because the odd star out is going to be a comet. This is Bootes. We can recognise straight away that the scimitar shape has an extra star there. What star would that be? And you move the cursor with the space bar and press enter when it's correct, and we found a comet. The comet was indeed in Bootes. So what we can now do is, the book tells you how to add an additional 3 constellations, which makes it harder. We have the constellation Pegasus, where you might find the Andromeda Galaxy. We have the constellation Auriga, which is number 5 here, which looks a bit like a rather dull tombstone shape, really. And then finally we have the constellation Gemini, which is a sort of elongated shape, a bit like one of those Easter Island statues fallen over. So now we have to spot where the comet is. But now, rather than in one of 3 constellations, it's in one of 6. We have 5 guesses to find it. That's not in the Ursa Major, the bear, which points towards Polaris, by the way. Could it be in Gemini? It doesn't look like it's in Gemini. I can see the nose of this statue falling over. Don't believe it's in Gemini. Oh, maybe I think is it that in Gemini? No, that is a star, not a comet. Auriga doesn't look like it's in Auriga. Auriga looks a rather dull shape. Now Pegasus, I think, has an extra star in it. The question is though, where is it? It's not in Orion. You press spacebar to go cycle through the constellations, like you would look around the night sky, just looking for a star that's not in the right place. And again, it's not that star in Gemini, because that is a genuine star. Could it be that star in that? No, that's also a star. Then after 3 guesses gives you a clue. Try Pegasus, mate. So you have 2 more guesses before it's game over. So one of these stars is not a star, but a comet. If you get it right, you get it named after us. No, that is not the right star. That is a star. 1 guess left. Which could it be? Which could it be? Nope. In fact, it was that one. We were very close, but no cigar. The next program is called Orbit. The book explains how planets have orbits which are not actually circular but elliptical, and they all go around the sun on what's called the plane of the ecliptic, which is like sitting on a dinner plate. So here we have mode 1. We have all the planets drawn from Earth out to Pluto, so the sun out to Pluto. You get to add available comets, and they'll show you the orbits of said comets. So let's have Halley's Comet. So we now draw it. Nice big drawing of the solar system. Nice dotted lines, labelled planets with letters, and there is Halley's Comet. It doesn't go out as far as I thought. It goes out beyond Neptune's orbit. And you can adjust the scale of the solar system to see more by typing in size. Or you can stop. Or the other option you have is to add extra comets based on information I got out of Wikipedia. So I'm going to add a comet, and it asks you want an elliptical orbit or a parabolic orbit. If it's parabolic, I don't think it comes back. But I'm adding a comet because I liked its name, also liked its distance. This poet is Lovejoy, presumably named after the lovable antiques dealer. You have to enter the eccentricity, the size of the orbit, which I believe is in astronomical units. All this information came from Wikipedia on the Lovejoy comet. And use a direction. And then it will draw it in for us. So here's the solar system. The J is for Jupiter, S for Saturn, U for Uranus, N for Neptune, and P for Pluto. Pluto's orbit is slightly odd. And there is Halley. And that's the Lovejoy comet, which goes quite a way out. It's so far out you can't see the end of it. So by changing the size of the diagram, the old size was 10, we increased it to 2. So now the inner solar system is absolutely tiny. And that's Halley. And Lovejoy goes considerably. 2/3 of its orbit is outside the orbit of Pluto, which is nice. Now I'm going to add one more comet. This is one of the Shoemaker comets. I recognised the name Shoemaker because of the Shoemaker-Levy comet, which collided with Jupiter. This is one of the many comets that a very clever lady called Shoemaker spotted. She spotted quite a number of them, but she's not in this book because this book was maybe wasn't quite so famous here then. So enter the eccentricity, enter the size of the orbit in, I believe, astronomical units, a direction. I worked out the numbers by basing the numbers in the book and looking at what the hell they were for Halley's Comet, and then say, oh, these must be these numbers, because the terms they use aren't very clear. And there's the Shoemaker, which is all rather splendid. That is a very good educational program. Next program was a game, a bit of fun. It's called Germ Invaders. This is based on some science and some theories which may or may not be true. Comets may contain complex organic molecules, which can build up life. However, some scientists, such as Fred Hoyle and Chandra Wickram Singh, suggest that worldwide epidemics of diseases could be caused by infectious bacteria drifting down from comets. So here we have a comet above, and it's dropping behind deadly germs, which are flashing green and magenta. And our duty is to save Earth by catching said comets in our bucket of disinfectant. The more germs that we miss, the iller we get and the slower we get. And the same with once the germs hit the ground, they start to multiply and we slow down. To start off with, it's relatively simple. We walk along and catch the germs in a bucket. They drop one at a time, and each comet can drop up to 5. Oh, here it comes. Bosh, nice and simple. Nice use of sound effects. I had problems getting this to run. The comet would move a third of the way across the screen, then just stop. It just turned out I missed the semicolon out at the end of a line. It's always good to be careful with these things. So that is another germ captured. Bosh, I'm good at this. With my bucket of Domestos or Dettol perhaps, other disinfectants are available. Possibly Zoflora. Oh, I've gone slightly too far. I've been hit by a germ. I've now come down with a heavy cold. The suggestion being, one of the suggestions was that the common cold could become from a comet. So the more colds you have, the slower you get. Well, so far I've managed to exterminate several bugs in the bucket. Oh, no, and I've dropped one, and I dropped another. I've now slowed down considerably. So now we have comets in the sky. Certainly the inspection of the comet has shown there are quite complex molecules there. We explore this idea further in the companion video to this on the Comet game, which is on the ZX Spectrum. Again, I've missed another bug. Here is our comet, leaving behind flashy outer space death. Fortunately, our bucket is safe. Our NASA-defined bucket. Oh, I missed that one, and I've missed that one. Not so good. It's a bit like the Andromeda strain, where that satellite comes back to Earth, and it's deadly. Or that very good film Life, although that is a microscopic life form coming from Mars. Very good film. Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds, who's very nice. Oh, I missed that one. I managed to survive 7 comets before collapsing in bed with a cold. The last program we're going to look at is the most complicated. It's called Flyby. It's all about missions to comets. Obviously, Halley's Comet was predicted. Everyone knew it was coming. And there were a number of space agencies giving it a go to visit it. So in the Halley's visit in 1986, there were 5 different spacecraft visiting it. 2 Japanese ones, 2 Russians, and a European spacecraft. So you get to choose a year, month and day to start and a time period. I've chosen the 10th of July 1985 because that was the launch of the Giotto spacecraft built by the European Space Agency. It's so cool because it's named after the Florentine painter Giotto di Bondone, who painted the Adoration of the Magi with Halley's Comet, which he saw 3 years earlier, as the star. So the way this works, you get the dot, which is the sun. You get to play with the scale. It first of all draws the orbit of Halley's Comet, which is that ellipse. We then draw the orbit of the Earth. Inside the Earth, there's an optional addition of the orbit of Venus. I've also added the orbit of Mars to get an idea of where we are. You can add other planets there. The data for Venus was missing. I had to add 1 extra number for it. And as time progresses, you get to launch a space probe. Or you can wait and see what happens. So I'm going to launch the space probe. It suggests giving a thrust of -5 along orbit and nothing sideways, and then seeing how close you get. It will then draw you a projection of your new orbit, and then you can sort of say, okay, accept it or not, or try again. If your new orbit would take you outside of the solar system, it would object and say you can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't let you do that, Dave. So the Giotto spacecraft was rather interesting because it was getting very, very close. When it actually meets the comet, it will be passing through the comet's cloud at between 70 kilometers per second. So at that speed, a grain of sand can penetrate 2 to 3 centimeters of steel plate. So it has a dust shield. It wants to take pictures of things. Unfortunately, if you expose a camera to that level of dust, you're going to break the camera. So it actually takes pictures of a mirror, which then reflects so you can look backwards and forwards. So you can adjust the scale. We're now going to zoom in a bit because the comet's getting closer. So you can adjust the scale as it gets more interesting and also adjust the time lag. The comet became close to cross Earth orbit in January and then again in late March, early April. So by zooming in, you can also change the scale of the time. Just so you don't have to proceed day at a time for 6 months. You can jump forward a month and then switch to going forward day by day. So the probe is currently 131 million kilometers away from Earth, and it's getting further away from Earth. And the comet's getting closer to the Earth, about 2 billion kilometers away. We're now going to zoom in, and it draws. It takes a while to draw. It does take a while to draw, but it's not nice effective use of graphics. Because it's mode 4, it's very high resolution, but you only get 2 colours, black and white. So the Giotto spacecraft was a real triumph for the European Space Agency. It was their first mission. They expected it to die, well not die, to be destroyed in contact with the comet. It actually survived, and they then also used the same ship, because it was already in space, to visit another comet, which was nice. So E is for Earth, and the comet, Halley's Comet, is following the boundary. It's named in honour of Halley. He observed it in 1682 from his observatory on St Helena, because it's obviously nice and peaceful. He then calculated it would return in 1756. It was actually 2 years late because of interference from Jupiter and Saturn, because it crossed very close to those. But then it was named in his honour. He never saw the return. So a bit too many lines. I'll be better off missing off Venus and Mars, because it just slows it down and makes it a bit harder to see because you haven't got the extra colours. But Halley's Comet is about to getting very close. It's now crossed Earth's orbit. It's getting close to the orbit of our probe. Our probe is on the far side of the Sun from it. However, our probe is going in the other direction of Earth's orbit. Earth goes clockwise. Our probe is going anti-clockwise and is meeting Halley's Comet to the south of the Sun, looking at from above. We're now going to zoom in and see what's what. That's Earth orbit. This is the orbit of the planet Venus. The orbit of the planet Mars is obviously outside. A single dot for the Sun. Well, first of all, though, we have our space probe. There's the Sun. And we are about to cross into the path of Halley's Comet. It is the middle of February now, just after Valentine's Day. And we are 1,300 million kilometres away. Reducing the scale now, the step to 10 days, because we're getting close. 774 million kilometres now. Let's drop it down to 5 days, because we don't want to miss our closest approach. In it goes forward, 497. We're now zooming in. Zoom it slightly too far. Let's zoom out to 450. When Giotto passed through the comet, it took several hours, and it missed hitting the nucleus by barely 500 kilometres. And they discovered very interesting, cool things. They expected it to be a big shining snowball in space. In fact, it was very, very dark. Halley's Comet is very, very dark, and although it is melting and gives off the tail, the actual surface is only spewing off steam in a few places, in jets rather than uniformly. So 326, 278 million kilometres, now March the 6th. 236, March the 7th. Getting very close now. 203 million kilometres. 186, we are creeping together. It's a little bit hard to see. Unfortunately, we can't zoom in at that bit. We only zoom in relative to the Sun, which is a bit of a shame. But we've now gone past our closest area. We can now adjust our thrust to try and maybe keep up with it. But all that does is show us a new orbit, which is not going to keep us up with Halley's Comet. But I think overall that mission was a success. We got very close.
You can keep trying it, even say if you want to, you can try and calculate how you would meet it for a return in 2065. The last program in the book I haven't typed in, it's just a database for collecting news stories to see if comets are bad luck. It also notes if you want to try and see Halley's Comet, your best bet is to go to April 1986 into Australia, and it also shows you how to find the comet based on the northern and southern hemisphere, but where to look in the sky in January and in April, which is rather nice. So morning sky in March and April, evening sky January and April. Rather lovely. Obviously much more impressive views from Australia. So that was my first attempt at a BBC micro type-in. It was different from typing it in on the Spectrum. You have to type in free form, which is nice, except it's also case sensitive because keywords are uppercase, whereas variables can be upper or lowercase, but it can get a bit confusing. You've got to make sure you get them right. I've ordered a few more of these books on various topics, so I shall be returning to this in the future. But for now, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again in the future.